Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
9 minutes before 8. Well, let's come back to that. The fact I mentioned that the Sunday papers and Today are talking about this pre-budget coverage and considerable funds going the way of the National Health Service. Let's turn to Health Secretary and obviously Conservative MP Sajid Javid, who joins me now. Well, by my sums, the Health Service will benefit by £6 billion over 3 years, which is around £2 billion per annum. Secretary of State, is that enough? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. It's a huge amount. Remember, this is on top of the investment that we've announced in recent weeks, the extra $12 billion a year that's going into health and social care over the next 3 years. And what this is, if I may, to put it into perspective, is that this is investment in capital. It's investment in physical things. Think of it as things that you can see, such as buildings and beds and IT and equipment. So it will include things like community diagnostic hubs that are going to mean millions of more people are going to get the tests and scans and the checkups that they need, investment in the beds and the equipment and the surgical hubs, investment in IT so that it can free up more of the time of dedicated NHS staff. And this, alongside the other funding that we've announced in recent weeks, is going to be a game changer for the NHS, meaning millions of more people will be seen more quickly.
The goal is to bring down the waiting list. How confident are you that this can help bring that about? And have you and your colleagues set yourself a deadline or a time scale by which you want to achieve that, Secretary of State?
No, I haven't set a deadline time scale. Let me tell you why. Is that because we all know that during the pandemic, millions of people stayed away from the NHS. They did it because they were asked to. They were doing the right thing. We said, stay away from the NHS to protect the NHS, let it focus on COVID. But what that meant was that there are millions of people that, by not coming forward, they obviously are still there. They've still got their health challenges. We estimate there were some 7 million people that stayed away. That's an estimate. Now, I don't know how many are going to come back. I don't quite know if the estimate is 100% accurate, but we do know millions stayed away, and I want them to come forward, and I want them to present themselves. I want them to know the NHS is open for them. But because I don't know how many people are going to come forward, on top of the normal demand that the NHS will get over the next few years, it's really hard to know where waiting lists go. But I will say this, and I've been very open about this, is that there are 5.7 million today, the waiting list. It will go up before it goes back down again. And that will happen because those millions that stayed away will come forward because we want them to.
Talking about staying away, I've heard from some of your senior colleagues the desperate need for anyone now who's ready to have their booster or third vaccination, whichever you choose to call it, they must come forward. Secretary of State, if one of my listeners hasn't been contacted, does he or she ring the doctor, ring NHS? Because I have a lot of concerned people ringing me. What is the course of action? Mr. Javid.
No, thanks for asking about this, Nick. I mean, the booster program is hugely important. We can all see why the difference the vaccines have made to our country. And so far, by the way, we've delivered in 4 weeks or so, over 5 million boosters in England, 800,000 in the last 72 hours. So the program's going well. But in terms of answering your question, is that the people that are eligible are those over 50 and have had at least 6 months past since their second dose of the vaccine. And if you are in that category, you should be contacted by the NHS. So, for example, today I think they're sending out another 2 million invitations. But if you're not,
sorry to talk over you, if you're not,
Yes, even if you haven't received an invite, let's say you change your address or whatever, don't worry. As long as 1 week has passed, so it's been 6 months and 1 week, you will be able to book. So you should go online, book your boost, or dial 119.
Okay, that's good to get that across. Let's move.
Have you had your boost?
I haven't yet, and that's why I'm mildly concerned. But I must present myself on behalf of my listeners, because I am sort of in that category. But I will literally take your advice.
Nick, you need a boost. You need a boost.
I want to. Secretary of State,
you are over 50, aren't you?
Considerably over. I know I don't look it. I know my looks belittle it, but I am considerably over 50. Right. And it's nice to know you have such a...
to get it when you're due.
I am a man on a mission, don't you worry. We're going to be explaining all of that. So I'll have the benefit of you with me. A couple of other things, Secretary of State. Talking about boosters, there's one headline here, Get Booster and Save Christmas. This is Professor Stephen Powers, of course, a man you work very closely with. Vaccinations remain the strongest weapon, but we are, quotes, at a crunch point. Mr. Javid, is Christmas safe?
Yeah, I think it is. It is. As long as we do what we all need to do. Everyone's got a role to play in this, right? We all want a fantastic Christmas, and we can ensure that by getting out there and getting our vaccines. And by the way, Nick, it's not just about the boosters. There are still some 5 million people out there that haven't had a single dose of the vaccine, and we need to basically tell them they need to do that, not just to protect themselves, but to protect those loved ones, to do their bit. But also there's other sensible behaviors that we can all have over the next few months. It's getting darker, we can see it's getting colder, we will spend more time indoors, and so we should think about the hand hygiene, about getting tested regularly, especially if you're going to be you're more vulnerable, perhaps an elderly relative or someone. So there are all things that we can do, and if we do that, I'm sure that we're going to have a great Christmas.
What about COVID vaccines mandatory for NHS staff, Secretary of State? Is that to become a law?
It might well do. We haven't made the final decision. We've consulted on it. We've been very open about it. The consultation has just closed. I've yet to make a final decision on this. But
Can I ask which way you're minded?
That's the direction of travel.
Because it is applicable to the care sector, isn't it, as of 11th of November?
Yes, so that's right. It's that requirement is already in place in the care sector. We did that a few weeks back. It kicks in, the sort of cut-off date is the 11th of November. And what we've seen there, by the way, is a surge, an absolute surge in the number of care workers that are rightly taking their vaccine. Some of them left it to the last minute, but at least they're doing it. And I think it means not just that they're safer, but the people they're caring for, the people that are naturally vulnerable in a care home are safer. And that's why we would do it in the NHS if that's the final decision we make.
So if you were to do it, what would prevent you if you've done it? And by the way, I think most of my listeners would agree, if you want to care for someone, there's a sort of clue in the word here, care, that you would want to make yourself. So if we're doing it in care, why would we not do it for the NHS? Surely it is.
As I say, that's where we're heading. The only reason I hesitate a little is just because we've closed the consultation, and until I think it's proper that we look at all the people that responded to that consultation. They took the time to respond. I think we should just look at all that and take that into account before making the final decision.
Labour think we should go to Plan B. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves saying this on the television yesterday. That would, of course, mean that working from home again and wearing face masks and social distancing and possibly vaccine passports. Your reaction to what Ms Reeves said?
Well, look, I don't quite know what Labour think. I mean, 1 minute they're for Plan A, then it's Plan B, then it's better Plan A, then it's a different Plan B. I don't know, but let's leave that to them. What I'm interested in are the facts in the ground, and the facts right now are that we don't think the data requires us to move to Plan B. I think it's right and proper that we set out what those contingency measures, what Plan B would look like, and the criteria we would judge whether we move or not. But right here and now, with where we are, I think Plan A, it remains the right plan. But again, I couldn't appeal more strongly to people to play their part in Plan A, and that is top of the list, as I say, the vaccines. Well,
the modelling seems to be going your way. If you've seen one newspaper today, suggestion from very prominent scientists that COVID cases will slump in the winter. So, sorry, Mr. Javid.
No, I was just saying that the cases, as we've seen, the case numbers will go up and down, and that's the nature of this virus. But of course, what we are all trying to prevent is a massive, unsustainable sort of surge in case numbers, and therefore, sadly, in hospitalizations. And again, to do that, let's all focus on the vaccines. Let's focus on our behaviours and play our part.
All right. Lastly, as Health Secretary, you won't need reminding how important clean air is, but there is widespread fury in and around London today at the introduction of the so-called ULEZ. I'm sure I don't need to explain to you what that is by the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, and the consternation by many motorists say that there should have been a longer term to allow them to trade in older diesel vehicles, whatever. Sajid Javid, your views on ULEZ as introduced this morning by Mayor Khan?
Well, I don't know enough about the detail of the policy in terms of how much time was given to people on ULEZ, but I do think that it is important for all across the country, whether it's in London or elsewhere, to play a part in cleaner air. But look, I'm not gonna. I know you probably are particularly. Have you got a diesel car? Is that why you're asking me? I think you probably have.
I have
and
a
you've
very
probably been hit
recent.
by-
I have a
yeah.
very recent diesel.
You've probably personally been hit by this charge.
No, I
and probably
haven't. No,
realised
my
that-
diesel car is no. I'm okay. I am here for others, Mr. Javid. You know this. I am.
Well, you keep saying that, but you should also be there for yourself as
that's
well,
very
because
kind of
people
you.
believe in you.
Well, that's as indeed they do you, Mr. Javid. But I'm just wondering whether I'm thinking of a plumber in Kidbrooke who's got a trade in his vehicle now, who's saying, "Why couldn't I have had 6 months? I've just come out of a pandemic. The government gave me some furloughs. They gave me some loans. I'm just about staggering onto my knees."
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr.
I
Javid.
think that's a really good point. I mean, I think that, as I said, I just don't know enough of the detail about how much time people were given, but it is right that, if you're going to make a big change, that people get the time to make that adjustment.
And I'm going online. The minute I finish today's show, I'm going online to sort that out. The next time we speak, I'll have had all three of them. You watch me. Sajid Javid, thank you very much. Health Secretary appearing here on LBC, where the 1 minute after 8 news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, almost £6 billion in extra funding for the NHS in England will feature in Wednesday's budget. The money